Amazing rescue. Marine and K9 expose the truth behind a girl's cry for help in freezing woods. Jake trudged through the frigid air, a mixture of determination and dread swirling within him. Every step echoed the voices of comrades lost, shadows of sacrifice whispering through the trees. He glanced at Max, his four-legged partner, nuzzling against his leg, a silent anchor amid the turmoil that surged inside Jake's mind. The small Midwest town he returned to felt suffocating. People recognized him, but how could they possibly know the weight he carried, a burden of guilt and responsibility? As news broke that 13-year-old Emily had gone missing, a familiar urgency gripped him. Memories of the battlefield mingled with the dread of potential loss, and while townsfolk rallied in shock, Jake's heart raced not just for Emily, but for the chance to find redemption. "They won't listen," he muttered bitterly, the hesitation of officials tightening his chest. Protocol. It was easy for them sitting in their offices, but those hours felt critical. Could he really sit back while someone needed help? He could still hear their voices in his head urging him to lead instead of wait, to be the one who acted. But the doubt that crept in was relentless. Would they see him as the hero he wanted to be, or just another troubled vet? His pulse quickened, a fracture forming between his need to honor the past and his desire to face this present challenge head-on. With no time to waste, Jake gripped the leash tighter, and the urgency felt like fire against his skin. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications, so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Each footfall crunched underfoot like gunshots in the dead of winter. Memories crashed over him, reminders of brotherhood but also of sacrifice. It wasn't just about finding Emily anymore. It was about proving himself. If he could save her, maybe he could silence the ghosts that clawed at him, the voices of soldiers who didn't come back. As the search stretched on, hints of Emily's story began to unfurl, intertwining with the fabric of his own ongoing struggle. A broken family, financial worries, the undercurrents he recognized all too well. They stung like shards of ice against his skin. What if they were looking for Emily, but blind to the deeper problems swirling beneath the surface? Rage surged alongside empathy, a tempest of emotions, thrusting him closer to confrontation. He pressed on, mentally weighing every decision. What if I get in trouble? What if they really think I'm overstepping? He swallowed hard, but the fear of inaction gnawed at him more fiercely. And then, just ahead, Max tugged at the leash, driving Jake deeper into the woods. The air felt thick, almost electric, as he broke through the last of the brush to stand before a low, concealed cabin, a newfound heartbeat of dread pulsing beneath the frost. What if the truth inside shattered everything he'd felt about his community? What if they had missed the signs all along? The door loomed before him, a fragile boundary between answers and anguish. The very feelings that had haunted him were now rising again, raw and unyielding. Jake's breathing quickened as doubt wrestled with determination. Clenching his fists, he was at the precipice, ready to make the choice that would echo far beyond this winter day, knowing that every revelation could bind or break them all. What lay behind that door? The town's fragile unity hinged on his next move, teetering on the brink of discovery or disaster. Jake stood at the threshold, a whirlwind of emotions racing through him. The cabin, shrouded in secrecy, exuded an aura of foreboding that resonated with his deepest fears. Was this where Emily found her refuge from the world, or was it a trap, lurking to ensnare him within its shadows? His mind raced with unsettling possibilities. Taking a deep breath, Jake placed a hand on the door, hesitating. The sheer weight of his responsibility hung heavily on his shoulders. He thought of Emily's mother, her face etched with anguish, and of the townspeople speaking in hushed tones about the missing girl. Each person had pinned their hopes on him, but could he truly deliver? Max, ever intuitive, sensed Jake's indecision. He shifted restlessly, letting out a low growl as if to say, "We can't wait." The dog's urgency cut through Jake's hesitation like a knife. Mustering every ounce of courage, he pushed the door open. Inside, the air was stale, mingled with the scent of neglect. Shadows danced along the walls, twisting and warping, much like the fears that clouded his thoughts. His instincts kicked in, sharpened by years of training. He scanned the room. Evidence of life, discarded clothes, an unwashed bowl on the table, a flicker of a child's drawing tacked to the wall. The drawing depicted a girl, smiling brightly, colors spilling onto the paper that now seemed a haunting contrast to the gray reality surrounding him. It twisted something deep within Jake, confronting him with the innocence lost and futures precariously balanced on choices he could not control. Heart pounding, Jake crouched beside the bowl, the remnants of cereal drying in the bottom. As he collected his thoughts, he couldn't ignore the chilling realization. Emily was somewhere in these woods, perhaps right under his nose, and the clock was ticking. A creaking floorboard drew his attention. He turned sharply to see a door at the end of the room, slightly ajar. That small opening mocked him. It was another path he must either confront or dreadfully evade. Was it bravery or foolishness battling within him? The defining point of his journey loomed ahead, yet the echoes of his own past palpitated in the depths of his mind. Every choice, every action now felt scrutinized, as if the stakes were not just his redemption, but something far greater. "Max," he whispered, and with that, they crossed the threshold into darkness. As the dim light from the single window receded, Jake's breathing steadied. Each step felt strategically calculated. He wasn't just a soldier anymore, but a man seeking every possible lead on a child's fate. The gravity of his choices pressed against him, the implications of any discovery brewing within a cauldron of desperation. At the edge of the door, he hesitated again, allowing the silence to wash over him. Should he call out? Would Emily hear him, or would he disturb something better left undiscovered? An inner struggle, a flicker of integrity versus sheer instinct, tightened his chest. The very values he had fought to live by now stood at the crossroads of each decision he faced. Just then, a low whimper broke the stillness from behind the door. The sound, soft yet painful, resonated deep within him. It chilled his blood, but ignited a fierce determination. The moment had come to confront not just whatever lay beyond that door, but the very essence of who he had become. As he moved forward to push it open, his thoughts crystallized. In every action, he would either forge a narrative of hope or one of despair. Jake steadied himself, gripping the doorknob tightly. He was not just a Marine or a man in search of redemption. He was also a guardian for those unable to fight for themselves. Each moment mattered. As the door creaked open, revealing a darkened room within, a single thought consumed him. What had he truly come to fight for? The answer lingered on the fringes of his mind, waiting for the light to pierce through the darkness. What awaited him on the other side would challenge everything he thought he knew, pushing him closer to the heart of not just this mystery, but the truths he had long avoided confronting about himself. As Jake pushed the door open, a rush of stale air enveloped him, leaving a metallic taste on his tongue. Inside the darkened room, shadows took on forms that danced at the edge of his vision, taunting him with what he could not see. He inhaled sharply, his senses heightened. The atmosphere was thick. What he sought was hidden here, tangled in the threads of fear and hope. The faint whimper resonated again, stronger now, punctuating the silence like a heartbeat. It propelled Jake forward, a magnet drawing him deeper into the room. Max remained a step behind, his instincts equally attuned, keen eyes scanning the dimness while his nose twitched, scenting a reality fraught with uncertainty. Jake fumbled for the light switch, eventually tracing the wall until his hand found the cool metal rectangle. He flicked it, and the bulb flickered hesitantly before revealing the small, cluttered space. A bed, disheveled and unmade, stood against one wall, its dark sheets slightly stained. On the floor, scattered toys and an overturned lamp lay testament to moments of chaos. But what caught Jake's immediate attention was the small figure huddled in the corner. A girl, no more than 7, clutching a tattered blanket that looked like it had been her companion for too long. The whimper had transformed into soft sobs, and with each breath, Jake felt a prick of urgency stab through his core. There it was, the reason for his search. Emily? He ventured cautiously. The name hung in the air, heavy with unspoken promises and fear. The girl looked up, wide-eyed and trembling. Her face was streaked with dirt and tears, but beneath the grime lay a flicker of recognition, a connection that shattered the barrier of despair surrounding them. Jake dropped to one knee, bringing himself closer to her level, radiating calm as his heart raced. "It's okay. I'm here to help you." His voice shook with sincerity, the weight of his mission rushing to the surface. He was no longer just a man with a purpose. In that moment, he could be her savior, her guide back to a world that felt impossibly distant. "Can you tell me what happened?" Emily's small frame shivered, not because of the cold but from a whirlwind of emotions. They said I was a bad girl," she stammered, her voice barely a whisper. "And they locked me away so I wouldn't run away again." Jake felt a wave of anger wash over him, fierce and consuming. The idea that someone could treat a child like this, that fear could imprison innocence, ignited a flame within him, a fire for justice, for protection. He tightened his grip around his resolve. "We're going to get you out of here," he assured her, the promise entwined with every thought of her mother's anguish and the town's whispers. "But first, I need you to trust me." Emily nodded slowly, struggling to untangle herself from the blanket that felt like a cage. As she finally stood, wobbly but determined, Jake felt the enormity of the responsibility he had embraced. He could no longer be just an observer. He was an active participant in her salvation. He motioned for Max to approach. "This is my partner, Max. He's trained to help protect you." The dog softened his stance, gently nudging against Emily's legs, sensing the girl's fear. His presence a balm to her distress. The bond between them, or rather the protective instinct of a dog and the fragile heart of a child, filled the room with warmth despite the physical cold. Jake's mind raced as he calculated their next steps. Escaping the cabin was his first priority. The shadow of whoever had done this still loomed nearby, a ghost lurking in the backdrop, and Jake sensed the urgency to move. "Okay, Emily, let's stick together. Stay close to me, and I'll keep you safe." With a newfound determination, they navigated toward the door. Jake's senses were heightened reflections of shadows casting doubt over their path to freedom. He scanned for any sign of danger, every creak of the floor beneath his feet amplifying his doubts. But as he looked into Emily's eyes, the terrified girl became his anchor amidst the turmoil. She was a beacon of hope that ignited his spirit. As they stepped outside, the chilling wind met them like a knife. But with every freezing breath taken, Jake's conviction solidified. He was no longer just pursuing a girl. He was shaping his destiny as her protector. The stakes had grown infinitely higher, and in the depths of his mind a question loomed like a thundercloud. What horrors awaited them beyond the safety of the woods? Jake caught a flicker of movement in the distance. Something was stirring, an unseen predator that thrust him into dire reality. They had to move fast. Jake's heart thundered as he assessed the woods surrounding them, every rustle in the underbrush threatening to pull him back into the depths of despair. His protective instincts kicked into overdrive. The cold air stung his lungs, but it was the weight of Emily's gaze that truly chilled him. She looked up at him with eyes wide open, an unspoken plea masked beneath layers of confusion and fear. It ignited something within him that he had thought dormant, a purposeful drive. "Stay close to me, Emily," he said firmly, his voice steadying against the backdrop of uncertainty. As they stepped into the forest, the dense trees formed a corridor of shadows that closed in around them, amplifying the feeling of being hunted. The path was treacherous, with roots jutting like the gnarled hands of secrets waiting to ensnare them. But Jake embraced the urgency in his core. Every branch cracking underfoot became a cue to push forward. He felt the quickening pace of his heart not just from fear, but from an awakening realization of his purpose. This was no longer just about rescuing Emily. It was a turning point in his life. Every choice he made would set a precedent, a lesson for both of them in bravery and responsibility. "Do you trust me?" he asked, glancing back at her as they dodged a low-hanging branch. Emily nodded, her face a fragile combination of determination and vulnerability. In that moment, a bond formed, mutual reliance built on the precipice of their shared fear. Suddenly, a growl emanated from the thicket nearby, sending a shockwave of adrenaline coursing through Jake's veins. Instinctively, he turned, projecting authority into the stance of his body. Max, aware of the change in atmosphere, bristled beside him, eyes darting around, every muscle tense in anticipation. "Stay behind me," Jake instructed, his voice dropping an octave. At that moment, the persona of the protector became instinctual, resonating in his very being. He prepared himself mentally, not just for the threat ahead, but for the responsibility that lay with him. His thoughts raced to his training, the hours spent honing himself in scenarios no one would ever wish to face. Yet here, in the chill of the limbs and the whisper of the winds, it was all real. Every technique, every approach to crisis management flooded back to him, compelling him to act with conviction. But it wasn't just tactical skills he needed. It was courage to confront his own doubts, the fear of failing Emily, of being just another figure in her long history of disappointments. This was a chance for him to restore hope, and he couldn't let that slip away. "Let's go," he commanded, taking decisive steps forward while scanning the trees. He could sense the predator, but he couldn't allow himself to give in to fear. With each step, he confronted his own limitations, reminding himself how far he'd come since he first pledged to protect those exploited by others. In stepping into this role, however daunting, he recognized his own evolution. He was more than a man seeking redemption. He was a shield against despair. As they scampered away, Jake's mind pivoted between the immediate threat and a deeper reckoning with his own identity. The shadows that skirted behind them weren't merely physical. They forced him to confront moments of doubt and clarity all at once. And then, as if answering his unspoken contemplation, a figure materialized at the fringes of the trees, dark and threatening, eyes fixated on them as if pulling Jake back into a suffocating grip of dread. The time had come to face whatever lurked in the darkness, and he realized that the path of protecting Emily was also about to lead him to a confrontation with his own past, the very essence of his struggle within. "Keep moving forward," Jake urged, his determination mounting. The looming figure was an angry whirlwind brewing, demanding he step up, and it was at this moment he understood. To fully protect Emily, he would need to unleash the very truths buried within himself. But with that understanding came a chilling weight. What shadows would he have to confront when they finally came face to face with the source of the terror? Jake's breath caught as he squared his shoulders, his instincts sharpened to a razor's edge. The figure's presence curled around him like the brambles that stretched across the forest floor. Shadows flickered in his periphery, each moment an agonizing reminder that he was no longer just fighting for survival. He was grappling with his past, the choices that had led him here, to this very crossroads. He took a steadying breath. "Emily, no matter what happens, stay behind me," Jake instructed, the gravity of his voice echoing through the tense air. He could feel the weight of his words. This wasn't merely about safety. It was about proving to himself that he could be more than a quiet observer of his own failures. As they crept forward, Jake's heart drummed a fervent rhythm, each beat synchronized with his resolve. He wasn't simply going to manage a crisis. He was poised to redefine his identity. The darkness in front of him was no longer just a physical presence. It was a mosaic of all the insecurities that had tried to consume him. Would he stand and fight? Or would he fall back into the habits that hollowed him? The figure loomed larger, its outline shifting in the dim light. An errant thought darted through him. What if this was just a part of his mind, a phantom conjured from regrets? But Jake quickly banished that notion. Specters of the past couldn't be faced if he ceded ground. Instead, he forced himself to focus on the immediate threat. Max let out a low growl, sensing the tension in the air. Jake's hand instinctively reached down, and he felt the warmth of the dog's fur beneath his palm, a reminder of loyalty and strength. He embraced it, determined to channel that loyalty into courage. "Let's go, buddy," he whispered, rewarding Max with a gentle squeeze as they continued to advance. They moved quietly, treading lightly, but every rustle seemed amplified, daunting. Each crack of twigs echoing like a thunderclap against the quiet of the forest demanded action. There it was again, the growl, deeper and more aggressive this time. It wasn't merely an animal, it was a manifestation of every choice and regret, every moment he'd wavered in self-belief. He wasn't just protecting Emily from external threats, he was battling the internal chaos that had kept him shackled for far too long. "Show yourself," he bellowed, his voice surging. He felt a surge of agency in that command, an assertion of his right to the present moment. The figure hesitated, and for a heartbeat, the world seemed to pause, suspended in uncertainty. "Jake, please." Emily's voice trembled, pulling him back from the brink. He turned to see the fear etched across her face, and something clicked, a realization that his strength wasn't just for him. It was for her, too. This wasn't only his fight, it was theirs. With newfound conviction, Jake forced aside self-doubt. He refocused on why he was here. The shadows might exist, but he had constructed a bridge of resilience. In the face of adversity, he could forge his identity anew. The figure shifted, revealing itself from the cover of trees, and Jake's breath hitched. It was a man, weathered but powerful, eyes glimmering with a dangerous intelligence. The battle for Emily's safety morphed into a personal confrontation, not just of the physical body before him, but of what he was willing to reveal about himself. In that fleeting moment, as the air thickened with menace and anticipation, Jake felt the incandescence of truth coiling within him. What was he truly willing to fight for? What battlefield stretched inside him, desperate for confrontation? With a determined gaze fixed on the shadowed figure, Jake readied himself for the inevitable clash, and what he would uncover about both himself and the man standing against them. The next step felt monumental. As they stood poised on the edge of summoning courage and claiming his identity, Jake understood that this was only the beginning of an unearthing he could no longer afford to shy away from. "Emily," he could barely whisper as he focused back on her, urgency spinning through his mind. "Stay close. It's time we faced what's been hunting us." The chilling realization surged in him as the man took a single step forward, and so began a journey not merely of survival, but of revelations that could reshape everything they held dear. Jake's resolve solidified as he faced the man, standing there like a specter he had long avoided. The tension hung thick in the air, a tangible reckoning beckoning him. Emily's presence anchored him, a beacon of motivation that pierced through the layer of intimidation gathering around them. Here was the moment that spurred ambition within him, to confront not only this threat, but himself, his fears, and the burdens he had carried for so long. "What do you want?" Jake demanded, his voice more forceful than he expected. With each word, he felt a renewed sense of authority over his own narrative, rather than playing the role of a bystander in a story that had spiraled out of control. The man simply smirked, his eyes glinting with amusement as if Jake's challenge were a game to him. Amid the escalating confrontation, Jake's mind raced. Could he confront the man's motives and still protect Emily? He instinctively narrowed his gaze at the figure, scrutinizing for weaknesses, not just in him, but in himself. Doubt clawed at him, but he quelled it. This wasn't merely a clash against an adversary. It was an inner battle for self-acceptance and strength. "Is this really how you want to end up?" Jake pressed, a strategic challenge. He couldn't let fear dictate his actions any longer, nor could he afford to let it unravel his self-worth. The man's grin faltered slightly, exposing a fraction of his frustration, and Jake seized that moment. "You're only hiding. Show me what you're really made of." The man's posture shifted, becoming less complacent as he straightened, realizing the desire for a larger confrontation was not just physical anymore. It was a collision of personal truths. Jake was ready to step beyond survival. He wanted to emerge victorious, both in body and spirit. Max, sensing the escalated aura, let out a low growl, stepping protectively in front of Emily. The dog's loyalty was another source of strength for Jake, and he silently acknowledged it. With a deeper breath and clearer intent, Jake realized this moment was about more than just defending Emily. It was about reclaiming all that he had ceded to his insecurities: fear, isolation, regret. The figure before him mirrored parts of himself, ambiguities he had fought against, parts that tried to drag him back into familiar shadows. Jake suddenly sensed an opening amid the chaos, a chance to confront not only the man but the very essence of his self-doubt. Just a shadow of a man, he declared, feeling the power of conviction swell within him. This wasn't just about protecting Emily. It was a chance to uncover a fierce, determined warrior inside him he thought he had lost forever. For a fleeting instant, the man's confidence wavered, and Jake pressed forward. "You can't take control of us. Not anymore." He tapped into an inner reservoir of determination, fueled by every moment he had spent battling not just foes in dark woods, but his own trepidation. But as they squared off, the man's posture shifted. He whispered words that felt like hollow promises, an attempt to undermine Jake. "You think this is just about what you see? It's always deeper than you realize." Jake's heartbeat quickened. What could that mean? A veil of dread morphed his initial fury into confusion. Was there a truth lurking just beneath the surface that he had yet to unearth? With urgency beating in his veins, Jake tightened his focus on the man, refusing to yield to the flash of uncertainty. "Show me." The struggle to wrestle meaning from this encounter wasn't solely about fear anymore. It was about awakening to the truth that could alter everything. He wouldn't turn back. He would forge ahead into that darkness, to discover not just the man's intentions, but his own transformative power in the process. As the confrontation loomed, Jake understood they were both standing on the brink, not far from revelation and its ramifications. Was he prepared to brave the truth, even if it led him down a path he had never imagined? The air thickened as the man stepped closer, and they were poised on the edge of understanding. Jake inhaled deeply as a new determination anchored him, preparing to face what lay ahead. This wasn't merely a fight for control, it was a critical fight to reclaim the entirety of his narrative. He couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning, and he was about to uncover something monumental, something that would unravel not only the confrontation of the present, but reshape every single aspect of his past. Jake felt a surge of adrenaline coursing through him as the man stepped even closer, a predatory gleam in his eye. It dawned on Jake that the confrontation could pivot on the knife edge of revelation or deception. Was this simply a battle for territory, or was it a deeper existential push and pull? The question echoed in his mind, drenching him in uncertainty about the truth hidden beneath this confrontation. "Deeper?" Jake echoed, his own voice steady despite the tempest brewing inside him. "What do you mean?" The man scoffed, his disdain palpable. "You think you're so righteous standing there, but you hide behind lies just like I do. We're not so different." "Different how?" Jake countered, fueled by a mixture of defiance and curiosity. He was grappling with an unnerving reflection in this man's words. Was there a part of him that aligned with this shadow, one he had been unwilling to acknowledge? The man's smile turned sardonic, as if he were privy to inside knowledge that Jake hadn't even begun to uncover. "You've built your life around fear and regret. You think it's all behind you now?" Jake's stomach twisted. Each word was a pinprick, bursting the illusions he had carefully spun to shield himself from the truth of his own insecurities. But as quickly as doubt threatened to envelop him, determination pushed through. "I will not let fear define me anymore. Not now." He took a step forward, channeling courage that felt raw, electric. The very ground beneath seemed to respond, vibrating with an intensity tied to his internal upheaval. This wasn't purely about defending a loved one. It was about liberating himself from chains he thought were long cast off. "You hold secrets," Jake insisted, keeping his voice steady. "What you know goes beyond this moment. I'm finished playing games." The man hesitated, and Jake seized the chance. "What do you want from me? You're not just here to intimidate. There's something else." The challenge in Jake's voice unraveled the man's facade momentarily. He shifted, uncertainty creeping into his expression, but a flicker of wicked delight returned quickly. "Maybe you'll find out sooner than you think." Jake clenched his fists. This dance of dialogue was revealing a jagged truth about himself. He could either carve his path forward or remain shackled by shadows. The stakes were rising, and with them, his awareness sharpened. The realization surged within him. He was standing on the precipice of both fear and enlightenment. The contrast between terror and empowerment was imminent, an internal war demanding resolution. Would he cling to his conditioned fears, or would he shatter the illusions of both himself and this man? As the shadows around them shifted, The first light of dawn began to break through the canopy of trees above, illuminating the fraught scene. Jake felt the brightness touch his skin, as if it were igniting a fire within him. If he was going to confront this man, it had to be with the full knowledge that his journey to understanding himself would ripple out far beyond this singular moment. Each revelation might unravel pieces of the past he had not fully addressed. With a resolute gaze, he addressed the stranger again. "I won't stop until I find the truth, not just about you, but about myself. You think you can scare me? You're deluded." An electric silence fell over them, an unspoken acknowledgement that shifted the dynamic entirely. The man now appeared uncertain, his bravado folding slightly under the weight of Jake's fierce resolve. It was a small victory, but significant. "Then let's delve deep," the man said, a hint of menace creeping back into his tone. "But be careful what lies beneath." As he spoke, Jake felt a trepidation rise within him. What lies awaited him in this revelation? Each moment brought them closer to a breaking point, perhaps one that would tether Jake's past to his present with finality. With the murmur of the woods around them, Jake stood steadfast. He was prepared to strip away layers of disguise, not just for the sake of confronting this figure, but in the name of unearthing his authentic self nestled beneath years of doubt. As their exchange lingered on the cusp of escalation, the woods around them stood eerily silent, heightening the tension that charged the air. Jake could feel it. A fork in the road was positioning itself, and the choice ahead would demand every ounce of courage he could muster. Would he embrace the vulnerability required to seek truth? Or would he back away from the abyss? A sudden crack of a branch echoed in the distance, pulling both men's attention. Something larger loomed around them, shifting the very atmosphere. Jake's heart raced. What awaited them was about to unfold, and he had a haunting sense that the truth was not only near, but threatening to rewrite everything he thought he understood. Jake's focus narrowed, as the crack echoed through the trees, sending a shiver down his spine. The enigmatic tension of the moment crystallized in his mind. This confrontation was about to take a turn he couldn't predict, yet it was necessary. He realized that he was not only unveiling the truth about the stranger, but also confronting profound truths about himself. The facade of certainty he had built began to crumble, challenging him to dig deeper within. With each heartbeat, adrenaline mingled with the clarity of purpose. He had positioned himself for a personal evolution, and the stakes were rising. As the man before him maintained his fierce gaze, Jake felt a flicker of doubt. He could continue playing his role in this dramatic play, or he could stand fully in the light of authenticity. The latter felt terrifying, but the scarier path now seemed like the only way forward. "What do you know about me?" Jake demanded, fighting the irrational urge to retreat. The man was no longer merely an antagonist. He had become a mirror reflecting Jake's own fears. Each word exchanged felt like an excavation of buried emotions. "Tell me what you've hidden. Show me my truth." With the woods enveloping them, the man's expression softened almost imperceptibly. "You think all of this is about secrets?" he replied, voice low, reverberating with something unexpectedly human. "It goes beyond that, Jake. It's about power, survival, and your refusal to acknowledge your own darkness." The words resonated deeply, tugging at Jake's core. What if, hidden behind this man's bravado, lurked something he recognized? Fear, regret, perhaps even a mirror of his past failures. "And you think using those fears against me will help?" Jake pressed, frustration tinged with curiosity. "Maybe not, but understanding them, that could change everything." A flicker of honesty danced across the man's face, making Jake momentarily reconsider their intertwined fates. They were two men, battling the shadows of their own making. As the dawnlight filtered through the trees, illuminating the ground around them, Jake felt emboldened. The man was attempting to manipulate him, yet there was a strange camaraderie simmering beneath the surface of their confrontation. Perhaps this exchange was more crucial than mere threats. This could become a defining moment where clarity emerged from chaos. "What are you hiding?" Jake found himself asking again, feeling oddly transformed. He sought the truth, not just from the man before him, but from within his own heart. If he was digging into the shadows, it was time to shine a light on them. The stranger took a step back as if startled. In that instant, Jake sensed a vulnerability breaking through the carefully constructed armor. "You're not ready," the man whispered, though something in his tone had shifted, a note of resignation layered with desperation. Jake's determination solidified. "I am ready. Whatever lies beneath, bring it forth. I will not allow fear to dictate my journey any longer. I want the truth, even if it hurts." A low growl resonated from the depths of the woods, startling both men. Jake's pulse quickened. The dread he had spoken into existence now materialized, echoing along with his heartbeat. Was it truly a creature lurking in the underbrush, or another layer meant to uncover his own internal beasts? "Don't divert your gaze, Jake. Focus," the man warned, his bravado slipping slightly. "We're not alone here." The atmosphere crackled with electric tension, and Jake's instincts kicked into gear. Whatever was about to unfold extended beyond this encounter. This moment was part of a larger narrative, a chapter that demanded he define himself against both the lurking chaos around him and the tempest within. With the unknown waiting just beyond the thicket, Jake understood he was racing against more than physical danger. He was wrestling with unimaginable truths urging to surface. Would he embrace them, or let the shadows swallow him whole? As the sound of heavy footsteps drew closer, Jake felt a surge of clarity wash over him. His journey wasn't simply about confronting this man. It was about rediscovering the essence of who he truly was. And now, he recognized the choice was about to be made. But just before Jake could steel himself for what was next, a shriek echoed through the trees. One unmistakably human. The shriek sliced through the air, sending a jolt of fear straight through Jake. It was a clear, desperate plea, a sound that triggered a primal instinct deep within him. He glanced at the man facing him, their confrontation momentarily forgotten, replaced by a shared urgency. "Did you hear that?" he asked, breath hitching in his throat as they exchanged quick glances. The urgency of the moment carved through the tension that had previously held them captive. Jake's previous resolve to confront his own darkness now seemed to clash with the immediate need to act. "Yes," the stranger replied, lowering his voice. "That sounded like someone in trouble. We need to move. Now." Without waiting for a response, the man sprinted into the direction from where the cry had emanated. Jake followed instinctively, his heart racing not just from fear, but with the thrill of taking decisive action. They weaved through the trees, branches clawing at their clothes as they ventured deeper into the woods. The echo of the girl's cry drew them closer, each step igniting a mix of dread and determination within Jake. What if they were too late? What if the darkness that lurked in these woods had claimed another innocent life? The thought fueled him, igniting a fierce commitment not just to save this girl but to confront whatever shadow lay ahead. As they neared the sound, Jake's thoughts spiraled. He realized that this moment, unlike any other, forced him to consider what kind of person he truly wanted to be. In this crisis, he could be defined not just by his fears, but by his actions, by the choices he would make under pressure. The weight of responsibility pressed heavily upon him. They broke through the last line of trees into a small clearing. The ground was marred with patches of frost, and the thin, cold air bit at their skin. In its center, a girl crouched down, clutching her leg, tears streaming down her face. "Help me!" she cried again, voice quivering with panic. Jake felt a punch of emotion at the sight. Empathy welled within him, pushing through the earlier resolve to confront his inner demons. Here, amidst the shadows, stood a beacon of vulnerability, a soul in need of guidance and protection. In that moment, Jake understood that his growth hinged not solely on confronting his fears, but on the act of helping others. The stranger knelt beside the girl. "What happened?" he asked, calmly assessing the situation. "I fell. I think I twisted my ankle," she gasped, struggling to catch her breath. Jake could see the agony etched on her face, but it was her fear that struck him the hardest. He dropped to his knees beside her, meeting her frightened eyes. "You're safe now," he said, his voice steady, drawing strength from the unexpected clarity of the moment. "We're going to help you." As they assessed her injuries, Jake felt a profound sense of purpose. In this critical moment, he was shedding layers of doubt, embracing the strength he had as a protector. The fear that had threatened to paralyze him began to melt away, replaced by a growing conviction of what he was capable of. But before he could further solidify his resolution, a rustling sound erupted from the thicket behind them, growing ever closer. Jake's chest tightened. This was no longer just about helping the girl. A new danger was looming over them, a dark shadow intent on disruption. "Get ready," the man whispered, eyes darting toward the sound. "Whatever's coming, we'll face it together." Jake nodded, bracing himself, the adrenaline spiking once more. The clarity of purpose fueled him, but the uncertainty of what lay ahead loomed larger. He had chosen to embrace the truth within himself, to confront not just the girl's pain, but the new threat that brooded in the background. As the noise of heavy footsteps converged on their position, Jake knew one thing. It was time to decide who he would become in the face of this grim reality. As the figure emerged from the thicket, a heavy-set man wrapped in shadows appeared, eyes glinting with menace. The air grew taut with anticipation. A palpable sense of danger wrapped around Jake, as he instinctively positioned himself between Emily and the looming figure. In that moment, every ounce of doubt he'd carried began to unravel like a tightly wound coil. "You shouldn't have come here," the man growled, his voice a deep rumble layered with a warning. "This is not your fight." Jake's body tensed, adrenaline coursing through him. He glanced at Emily, her frightened eyes wide with confusion, and for a fleeting moment, he understood something profound. This wasn't just about her safety. It was about confronting every shadow he had allowed to dictate his life. "It's always been my fight," Jake shot back, his bark of authority surprising even himself. The realization washed over him like a wave. He wasn't just a soldier or a troubled vet. He was a protector. With each breath, he could feel the strength simmering beneath his skin, fueling a purpose that had long lain dormant. The figure sneered, and for an instant, Jake saw a flash of fear flicker behind the bravado. The man had become a projection of all Jake had fought against: fear, doubt, regret. But Jake was no longer that fragmented man. He stood resolute, shoulder to shoulder with Emily and the stranger who had become an unlikely ally. "Get behind me," Jake instructed Emily, who squeezed Max's soft fur as she obeyed. Max growled, his instincts kicking in as he sensed Jake's mounting courage. The dog served as both shield and mirror, reflecting the commitment Jake had just awakened. "Why do you care?" the man snarled, stepping closer, the shadows consuming him. "She means nothing in the grand scheme. You're wasting your time." That statement struck Jake harder than any blow, the truth embedded within a convoluted message. "You don't understand," he declared, his voice firm. "I care because I've walked through shadows of my own. I've buried guilt and regret, and now I choose to fight for what's right. She's worth it." As the words flowed, a light flickered in Jake's soul, one illuminating the very reason he had taken on this mission. This moment was a culmination of every struggle he faced, and he was ready to embrace the entire spectrum of his being: the protector, the soldier, the man finally forging his identity on his own terms. "So be it," the man growled, stepping forward menacingly. Just then, a loud crack of breaking branches echoed behind him as he took a step. The distraction only escalated, casting uncertainty upon the confrontation. But Jake stood his ground, resolute, ready to face whatever darkness pushed its way forward. Together, they stood as a bulwark against the encroaching shadows, armed with a fierce determination that had crystallized through a tumultuous journey. Every choice he made now resonated louder than the trepidation that had once held him captive. In that crucial moment, Jake recognized a familiar feeling. This was the purpose that had driven him into action before, not on the battlefield, but a deeper fight within. After all, he wasn't alone. This was about stepping into the light of courage that galvanized others to such strength. "Step away from Emily," he said, aged authority echoing in his voice, towering against the man before calmly asserting courage. With a flick of his wrist, the man went still, caught in the crossfire between further provocation and the palpable determination that radiated from Jake. "Fight me instead," the man challenged, however. There was an undercurrent of desperation in his tone. It was as if he craved the confrontation to distract from the truth stalking him in the darkness. "Why would I fight you?" Jake replied, a newfound clarity sharpening his perceptions. "You're not my enemy. I'm done fighting shadows, but you need to confront them, and you have a choice." The tension lingered in the air like a taut bowstring. Heat radiated from Jake's core, fueling a profound sense of purpose. He was embodying strength and vulnerability in tandem, the clarity cutting through the chaos of the woods encasing them. As the man hesitated, maybe even faltered, Jake saw the fracture. It painted a broader picture of fear and perhaps regret in his eyes. Without waiting for him to articulate a response, Jake turned to Emily. "Let's move," he declared, conviction fueling every word. With that, he stepped toward her, and together they began to retreat, an unbreakable trust nestled between them. Growls from Max filled the air, a harbinger of loyalty and protection as he mirrored Jake's every movement. The man's derision faded into the cold air, the shadows behind him receding in the face of resilience born from truth. Jake felt lightning in the air, the benefit of confronting not just the shadows of the woods, but those woven into his identity. And as they navigated the trail leading back, the sunlight filtered through the branches, illuminating their path ahead. With every step taken, Jake knew he was not only saving Emily, he was reclaiming each piece of himself he had hesitated to embrace. The transformation crystallized within him, forged through resilience, strength, and purpose. Finally breaking past the last barrier of trees, Jake realized they had escaped not just the physical confines of danger, but had confronted the nuances of his inner turmoil. As they stood in the clearing, the warmth of sunlight enveloped them, a reminder that through connection, courage, and confronting truths, even those so dimly perceived, he had turned a journey into a revelation of growth. They had faced the darkness together and emerged on the other side. In that moment, Jake felt the weight of shadows lift, replaced by the light that glimmered on the road ahead, beckoning endless possibilities, renewed purpose, and authentic freedom. "Are you ready?" he asked Emily, who smiled softly through her tears, a reflection of resilience lighting her small features as they prepared for the safety of the town. "Yes," she nodded, finally allowing hope to shine in her innocent eyes. They had traversed the darkness, and Jake vowed that from that point on, he would walk the path of light with the same conviction, no longer the burdened guardian, but the empowered protector, a hero recognized not just by the world, but by his own heart. From here, his journey was defined not merely by battles and shadows, but by reclamation, new beginnings, and the unequivocal drive to illuminate the very essence of who he had become, an undeniable force of good in the world destined to rise and thrive. To the audience captivated by the unfolding of Jake's journey, it's your turn now to take action. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and inspire more remarkable narratives. Comment your reactions and theories about this transformative journey. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this powerful conclusion. This is the moment to show your support and let your voice be heard. Don't wait even one more second to share. Your engagement matters in breathing life into new stories of personal overcoming.